Welcome to today's class. It's a short class, so I'll just go straight to the point. So remember, we have covered so far 12 chapters out of 14. The remaining chapters are now not very long. So we are remaining with chapter 10 and chapter 11. Let me just confirm. I think it's chapter 10 and chapter 11 only remaining. We have covered the other remaining topics. So chapter 11 is the shortest topic in management accounting. So chapter 11 can take us around 30 minutes or so. But we will not, of course, do it today. We can create time next week to do it. And then chapter 10 is what we are going to do today. We may not finish chapter 10 today. So if we don't finish it today, we will just create maybe Thursday next week so that we finish chapter 10 and we take 30 minutes on chapter 11 and we'll be done on syllabus so that we start revision. So that is my plan as we start. So let's straight away go to decision making, which is chapter 10. We may not complete it. We will not complete it today. So we will meet Thursday next week online. Next week online, Thursday. But remember, this weekend, you have your mock. This weekend, you have your mock. Don't forget about that. I had already shared the timetable in the group. So maybe you can just confirm. And to Minicofin students, I had also shared it in your email addresses. So why don't we start on decision making? So I remember when we were in chapter 1, we had said that the purpose of management accounting is threefold. Number 1, management accounting helps an organization in planning. Number 2, management accounting helps organization in control. And number 3, management accounting helps an organization in decision making. So, of course, we'll start with what is this decision making? What is decision? What is decision making? So we had already defined what a decision making is. What is decision making? So we had already defined it in chapter 1. So we said that decision making is a choice between what? We had covered this, between alternatives. Decision making is a choice between alternative. Maybe I want to make an investment decision. Should I invest in Huye or should I invest in Msanze? That is a decision. So you have two alternatives, whether to open a new branch in Huye in the south or to open one in the, is it west or north, Msanze, to open in Msanze. That is a decision. So making a choice. Every human being is a decision maker. Everything that you do, it's all about decision making. You are coming to class today was a decision. You had to weigh the option. Should I attend or should I not attend? So what is decision making? Decision making is a choice between alternatives. A choice between alternatives. So what are we trying to say? There must be at least two or more options, into bracket, alternatives to choose from. There must be at least two or more options to choose from. There must be at least two or more options to choose from. There must be at least two or more options to choose from for you to make a decision. You must be given a variety of options. Decision making, so the next point, decision making sometimes is a complex process that involves a number of steps to be followed. So we are trying to say decision making, sometimes it's not easy. It's a complex process sometimes that involves a number of what? Steps to be followed. That involved a number of steps to be followed. So that one leads us now to, okay, if I go back to, if there is anybody writing, decision making sometimes is a complex process that involves a number of steps to be followed. So that involves a number of steps that we should be following when making decisions. So that, of course, informs us to what are the steps involved in decision making. Steps involved in decision making. Steps that are involved in decision making. What steps do you follow? Step 1. So there are about 6 or 7 steps, around 7 steps. Step 1, identify the decision. Step 1, identify the decision. What do you mean by this? What is the decision you want to make? Is it an investment decision? Is it opening a new branch? Is it choosing a course to study? Which professional course to study? etc. So identify what? Identify the decision. Identify the decision. E.g., the decision can be opening a new what? A new branch of a company, of a business, So you have your business, the decision, identify the decision. E.g., the decision can be about what? Opening a new branch. Step 2, when you are making a decision, your second step, gather relevant information. What have I done? Okay, I've gone back, okay? Step 2 is gather relevant information about the decision. Gather relevant information about the decision. E.g., what is the cost of the decision? What is the market size, etc. E.g., market size of the places to open new what? Branch in. What is the market size? Is it a good market or is it a very small market? So gather relevant information. Step 3. Your third step, identify the alternatives. Identify the alternatives available. Identify the alternatives available. So identify the alternatives available. Remember, what was the decision? Decision can be opening a new branch of a business. E.g., should we open a new branch in maybe Huye, is it called Nyagatare? Nyagatare or Msanze? Those are the different alternatives. Should we open in Huye, Nyagatare, or should we open in Msanze? Which one should we open? So Caleb, I think my voice is clear. Other people can hear me. Maybe just check on your side. My volume should be okay. If it was not okay, other people could have already said my volume is okay. So Caleb, maybe the problem is from your hand. So here, identify the alternatives what? Available. Identify the alternatives available. So we have said alternatives available is, should we open in Huye, Nyagatare, or should we open in Msanze? That is step 3. Step 4. Our fourth step is weigh the evidence. Weigh weigh, is weigh written there? Weigh the evidence in each option. In other words, e.g., what are the size of markets in each? Size of markets in what? In each what? Branch. In each branch being considered. What is the size of the market in each branch that is being considered? So step 5, once you have weighed the evidence in each option, maybe you have identified that Huye will give you the biggest market size. In that case, choose amongst the alternatives. Choose. Now make your decision. Choose, how do you write? Amongst the different what? Alternatives. E.g., choose what? Huye, depending on market what? Size. Depending on market size. Choose Huye maybe depending on the market size. Step 6. So step 5, choose amongst the different alternatives. Step 6, take action. Take what? Take action. So what is the action? E.g., open the branch in Huye. That is the action. Step 7. Step 7, in this case, review the decision. After maybe review the decision, after some time, you need to search yourself. Did I really make the right choice? So the point I'm trying to make, you must know the different steps involved in decision making. What are the different steps that a manager follows when he's making a decision? The different steps that are involved in decision making. Different steps that are involved in decision making. So those are the steps. You have time to try to remember them. Review the decision is the last step. So what is step 1? Identify the decision to be made. Maybe the decision is opening a new branch of a business. Step 2, gather relevant information about the decision. Step 3, identify the alternatives available. Step 4, weigh the evidence in each option. Step 5, choose amongst the different alternatives. And step 6, take action. And step 7, review the decision. Now, scope of the chapter. Scope of decision making. What will we be covering under decision making? Decision making, the following will be covered under the chapter decision making. So the following will be covered under the chapter decision making. Number 1, we will look at what is called limiting factors. Limiting factors. In other words, taking a decision. Is it the right English word? Making a decision in conditions where there are limiting what? Factors. In other words, where there are scarce resources. That is actually what we'll be looking at today. So making a decision where there is scarce resources, that is limiting factors. Next, we will look at what is called make or maybe relevant and non-relevant relevant costs, relevant and non-relevant costs. Number 3, we look at make or buy decisions, and these are very common in exams. And number 4, what we call shut down decisions, shut down decisions. What do we mean by these? In other words, in this topic, we are going to cover the following. After we have looked at introduction to decision making, which you can also be asked under introduction. Next, we are now trying to say we will be looking at how do we make decisions when there are limiting factors. When you don't have enough resources, how do you make a decision? Number 2, what are relevant and non-relevant costs? We had looked at this in chapter 2. Number 3, make or buy decisions. Should we make a product ourselves or should we buy it? For example, if you are a shopkeeper, should you bake your own bread or should you buy your bread from suppliers and then you sell? So baking your bread is what is called what? Make decision. Buying from suppliers is buy decision. So in that case, we are looking at what is called make or buy decisions. And then shut down. Maybe a department is making losses. When do we shut down? Sometimes a department is making losses, but you don't want to shut it down because it is very important. It is even supporting other departments. So even though it's making a loss, you will not close it because it is very important in serving other departments. You may lose your company reputation if you shut down. So how do you make decisions in shutting down? When you want to close down a department or a branch or a company, what decisions do you make? That is what we want to look at. So for today, we only want to concentrate on number 1, limiting what? Factors. So let's look at number 1, limiting factors. So that is number 1. Make sure you understand this very well. So what is a limiting? What is a limiting factor? What is a limiting factor? So that is our starting point. Fine. So when we talk of a limiting factor, is a factor that prevents, a company or a business from achieving the level of activity that it would like to. So when we talk of a limiting factor, it is what prevents you from achieving. Maybe I want to make a profit of 100 million. What prevents me from making the profit of 100 million? That is what is called a limiting factor. So what is a limiting factor? It's a factor that prevents a company from achieving the level of activity that it would like to. E.g., you would want to make a profit of what? Rwandese francs, maybe 100 million, but you lack enough raw materials to enable you produce the number of chairs that will give you the stated profit. Please understand me. So you'd want to make a profit of 100 million, but you lack enough raw materials. Raw materials are not enough to enable you produce the number of chairs that will give you the stated what? Profit. So in this case, therefore, comma, raw materials will be the limiting factor. In this case, raw materials will be the limiting factor. In this case, raw materials will be the limiting factor. But the key word is there, don't lose track. Raw materials will be the limiting factor. The next point that I'm making, which is important, limiting factor arises when the resources, how do you write resources needed? What you need are more than the resources, take note of that, available. So limiting factor only exists, this is extremely important. Limiting factor exists when the resources needed are more than the resources what? Available. So limiting factor arises when the resources needed are more than the resources that are available. Are more than the resources available. When the resources needed are more than the resources available. Take note of that. So limiting factor arises when the resources needed are more than the resources available. So you compare what the limiting factor, the resources needed. So here we will need to look at finding the limiting factor, or what we say, identifying the limiting factor. So how do we identify limiting factor? We have said limiting factor arises when resources what? Needed are greater than resources available. I've really taken a lot of time in introduction. So limiting factor arises when the resources needed are more than the resources available. Therefore, always calculate number one, resources needed. Number two, resources available. So compare the two. To identify if there is a limiting factor or there is no limiting factor. So you compare the two so that you identify whether there is a limiting factor or there is no limiting factor. Example. Refer to Excel sheet. So refer to Excel sheet. What will we be doing when we are referring to Excel sheet? We will be looking at resources needed versus resources available. So let's refer to the Excel sheet. I hope I have it here. So in our Excel sheet, this is also in your notes, example 1 in your notes under limiting factor. So read through that example and read through it carefully. So you are being told, suppose A Limited makes 2 products, X and Y. Individual product details are as follows. Suppose A Limited makes 2 products, X and Y. Individual product details are as follows. Both products use the same machine and the same raw materials that are limited to 200 hours and what? And $500 per week, respectively. So, okay, you have been given everything. Require identify the limiting factor. So let me be very slow here. What is the required? Identify the limiting factor. Identify the limiting factor. So required is identify the limiting factor. Identify the limiting factor. So we have said limiting factor exists, what have we said? When resources needed are more than resources available. So that is what we have said. So compare the two. Compare the two. So limiting factor arises when the resources needed are more than the resources available. So look at this. What are the resources? Resources are, number one, individual product details are as follows. Both products use the same machine hours. Number one, machine what? Hours. And number two, raw material costs. So I'll talk of raw materials. So resources are those. So let's start with number one, machine hours. Please, let's be attentive here. Machine hours. So I'll go for, look at this. Machine hours needed. Machine hours needed is equals to machine hours needed. Okay, I'll start with maybe machine hours needed is equals to, look at this. What are the machine hours per unit? 5 and that. So machine hours needed, look at what I'm doing there. 5 hours times the number of units we are making, 50 units, plus 3 hours, I hope we are seeing, times 100 units. Please take note of that. Please look at it carefully. So machine hours per unit is 5 for X. For Y is 3 machine hours per unit. What are the total units? 50 and 100. So what is the total machine hours needed? The total machine hours needed is therefore provided. So what will it be? So that will be equals to 5 times 50 is equals to how much? 5 times 50 is equals to 5 times 50. So it's equals to 250. 5 times 50 is equals to 250. And the other one is 3 times 100 is equals to 3 times 100 is equals to 3. Is it 300? 3 times 100, is it first of all 3? Yes, 3 times 100, and this is 5 times 50. So 3 times 100 is equals to that. So what is the total? Here we'll give you what? Total hours needed. Total hours needed is therefore equals to 250 plus 300. So 250 plus 300. The total hours needed is 250 plus 300. Next, we compare hours available. Hours available is equals to, what is it? Hours available, you are being told, the same that are limited to 200 hours. So you can see that 200 hours, 200. So this is what? Hours. This is also hours. So we can say, here we can conclude that the hours needed are more than hours needed into bracket 550 are more than hours available. Hours available are 200, and therefore machine hours is a limiting what? Limiting factor, because what we need is 550 and what is available is that. What is available is that. So machine hours are limiting factor. I hope we are together there. So what is needed, look at this, is hours that are needed are more than what? Hours that are available. Therefore, we don't have enough resources. Number 2 is raw materials costs. Yes, what is available is only 200. That is what you have been given. Where is the other you are talking about? Yes, we only took that. Both products use the same machine and the same raw materials that are limited to 200 hours and $500 per week, respectively. What does the word respectively mean? 200 hours is for machine. $500 is for raw materials. $500 is for raw materials. Okay, so let's continue. 500 is for raw materials. So let's test this. So what is the raw material costs needed? What is the raw material cost needed? So let's look at cost of raw material. What is the material costs? Material costs, how much? 10 and 5. 10 and 5. So that is materials costs. Remember, that is these materials costs. That is materials cost is 10 and 5. So 10 times 50 plus 5 times 100. 10 times 50 plus 5 times 100. So this one is 10 times 50 units plus 5 times 100 units, whatever it gives you. So that will give you 10 times 50, whatever you get. So is equals to 10 times 50. So that gives you, okay, whatever. And this is 5 times what? 100. What do you have? 5 times 5 times 100 also gives you 500. So total material costs needed, the total material cost needed is total amount of money, in short, needed for material. Total material cost needed is equals to 500 plus 500. So what does that give you? 1,000. It gives you 1,000. And total material cost available. Total material cost amount available is equals to total material cost amount available is equals to how much? $500. Total material cost available is equals to how much? $500. So we can say raw materials is also a limiting factor because what? Because raw material cost amount needed is 1,000, but raw material cost amount available is what? Available is 500, is 500. So conclusion, what is our conclusion? Therefore, both raw materials and machine hours are what? Limiting factors. You are making a decision. Therefore, both raw materials and machine hours are limiting factors. They are both what? Limiting factors. They are both limiting factors. So that is your conclusion. Why are they both limiting factors? Because what is needed is more than what is available. What you need is more than what is available. That is how you identify a limiting factor. 1 minute for it to sink in. So limiting factor arises when the resources needed are more than the resources available. We are in which chapter? Decision making. How to identify a limiting factor. How to identify a limiting factor. We are in decision making. How to identify a limiting factor. So that is example 1. Maybe let's also cover example 2 so that we see the same. So maybe let me copy that so that I save time in example 2 so that I have more platform for solution. So I'm copying something like that just to ease in my work. Of course, the question is different. The question is different, but I'm copying that so that my work is easier. And also to ensure that making a decision is easy. So let's read the question. 2 products alpha and gamma are made of material X and material X and require skilled labor in the production process. And require what? Skilled labor in the production process. The product details are as follows. Selling price, variable cost, contribution, material X required per unit, skilled labor time per unit as also. The maximum demand per week is 30 units of alpha and 10 units of gamma. The company can sell all the alphas and gammas that it can make, but there is a restriction on availability of both material X and skilled labor. There is a restriction on availability of what? Material X. So what are the resources needed? Material X is number 1. Material X, and number 2 is skilled labor. I hope you are seeing how I'm identifying skilled labor. So resources needed, number 1 is, there are 2 resources needed, material X and number 2, skilled labor. So let's start with material X. Material, I'm just doing that so that I save time. Material X. So let's read through the question. There are 150 kgs of material X and 45 hours of skilled labor available. So look at this. Material X kgs. Look at what I'm saying. Material X kgs needed. Material X kgs needed. I hope you are all following. What kgs of X are needed? You can carefully follow that. What is needed is material X required 2 kgs and 4 kgs. And the number of units is 30 and 10. So you can see these. Sorry. 2 kgs. Look at this. Here I'm changing to 2 kgs per unit times how many units? Times 30. And this other one is how many kgs? 4 kgs. 4 kgs. I'm just doing that so that you see the relationship between the examples. And 10. So that is what is needed. So this will give you is equals to 2 times 30, whatever it gives you. What does it give you? 2 times 30 is equals to 2 times what? 30 is 60. And this other one is 4 times 10. 4 times 10. So it's equals to 4 times what? 10. What does it give you? 60. So what is the total material X? Total material X kgs needed. So total material X kgs needed is how many kgs? 100 kgs. So next, material X kgs available. Material X kgs available is how many kgs? I saw it somewhere. There are 150 kgs of material X and 45 hours available. So this is 150. So what is available is 150 kgs. Now I want you to help me make the decision. Can you kindly help me make the decision? What is needed is 100. What is available is 150. So what will you say? Materials needed 100 kgs are less than materials available. Can you type for me the answer? Is materials a limiting factor or not? Available. Can you type for me the answer? Is it a limiting factor or not? What we have is 150. Is it a limiting factor? Type for me the answer, please. I want to see the answer. Not. It is not. Thank you. It is not a limiting factor. Materials needed are less than materials available. Therefore, materials are not what? Limiting factors. Materials are not limiting factors. I hope we are together there. Thank you for identifying that. That has helped us. Not a limiting factor. It is not a limiting factor. So let's go to the second item. Second item was skilled labor. Let us test whether skilled labor is a limiting factor or not. Skilled labor. So let's test whether skilled labor. So we can say skilled labor hours needed. Skilled labor hours needed. Skilled labor hours needed. How many hours? 1 hour and 3 hours. 1 hour times 30 units and 3 hours times 10. 1 hour times. So skilled labor hours needed is 1 hour. This is what? 1 hour times how many units? Times 30 units. And this other one is 3 hours times how many units? Times 10 units. So you all know what we'll do there. So is equals to 1 times 30, whatever we get. And this other one is 3 times 10. So this other one is, so 1 times 30, it gives you 30. And this other one is 3 times 10, also gives you 30. So the total skilled hours needed, total skilled hours needed is equals to 60 hours. What are the skilled total? Skilled hours available. Total skilled hours available is 45. Total skilled hours available is how many hours? 45 hours. Give me the decision, please. Give me the decision. The decision. Hours needed is 60. Hours available is 45. What is the decision? Is it a limiting factor or not? Decision, type for me in the chat. Type for me. Is skilled labor a limiting factor or not a limiting factor? Thank you, thank you. It is a limiting factor. So we can conclude skilled labor is therefore a limiting factor, because what is needed is more than, because what is needed is more than what is available. So what is your conclusion? Therefore, only skilled labor is a limiting factor. Materials is not a limiting factor. That is identifying a limiting factor. Therefore, skilled labor is a limiting factor, but materials is not a limiting factor. That has really taken me a lot of time. I wanted to finish that introduction within 30 minutes. I've taken 1 hour. I've taken, sorry, not 1 hour, 45 minutes. So our first step was to identify a limiting factor. Now you all know how to identify a limiting factor. Let us, I'll share, of course, this Excel. Let us go back to the slides. Let us go back to the slides. Now we are all comfortable how to identify a limiting factor. That is now not a problem. Everyone in this class should now be in a position to know how to identify a limiting factor. So let's look to what the most common question in exams is. The most common question after you have identified the limiting factor, there is always part B of the question. Part B of the question is what we call optimal production plan. Optimal production plan. Optimal production plan where there is only one limiting factor. Remember, in example 1, there were 2 limiting factors. Example 2, there was 1 limiting factor. So we want to find out optimal production plan when there is a limiting product, when there is only 1 limiting factor. So I know the question is, what is optimal production plan? What is optimal production plan? So optimal, what is optimal production plan? So I'll call it what? OPP. Sorry. I'll call it OPP. Optimal production plan. So what is optimal production plan? Optimal production plan is the number of units to be produced for each product that maximizes total contribution stroke profit stroke what? Profit. So optimal production is the number of units to be produced for each product that maximizes the total what? For example, in the example you have just covered alpha and gamma. How many units of alpha should we make and how many units of gamma should we make when we realize there is a limiting factor? Remember, when there is a limiting factor, you will not make all units. Maybe you are supposed to be making 1,000 units, but because you don't have enough skilled labor, you will only make what? 700 units. So what is an optimal production plan? Optimal production plan is the number of units to be produced for each product that maximizes total contribution. Optimal production plan is identified by following the I'm avoiding repeating English words. By following the steps listed in the next slide. I think that is better. So optimal production plan, how do you get this optimal production plan? Optimal production plan, you get it. Let me just write it in full. Optimal production plan is identified by following the steps listed in the next slide. By following, so what is an optimal production plan? Optimal production plan is the number of units to be produced for each product that maximizes total contribution. So steps followed in identifying, in calculating, or in finding optimal production plan and total what? Contribution or profit. So steps to be followed when you are identifying the optimal, how many units to make. What are the steps to be followed when identifying the optimal production plan? What are the steps that you need to follow when you want to identify the optimal production plan? Step one, you all know, identify the limiting what? Factor. Identify the limiting factor. Already what? Covered. Already? Okay, identify the limiting factor. Okay, instead of writing already covered, when what is needed, what did you say? When what is needed is more than what is available. When what is needed is more than what is available. Step two, calculate contribution per unit. Everyone knows how to calculate contribution per unit. Everyone knows. So contribution per unit is equals to what? Selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. Selling price per unit variable cost So this is equal to contribution per, so calculate contribution per unit. Calculate contribution per unit. Contribution per unit is equal to selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. That is step 2. Step 3 is calculate contribution per unit of limiting factor. Calculate contribution per unit of limiting factor is your third step. Calculate contribution per unit of limiting factor. Calculate contribution per unit of limiting factor. So contribution per unit. Okay, instead of writing it, we can just say it, which is equals to contribution per unit, that is step 2, divided by limiting factor per unit. Divided by limiting factor, divided by limiting factor per unit. I will show you an example. Don't worry about that. I will show you with an example. Step 4. Step 4. Rank the products using contribution per unit. Rank the products using contribution per unit of limiting factor. Rank the products using highest first, lowest what? Last. So rank the products using contribution per unit of limiting factor. You start with the highest first and the lowest last. Step 4. Step 4. Allocate the scarce resources. Allocate the scarce what? Resources. In other words, the limiting factor. Allocate the limiting what? Factor. Allocate is to share. Share. Allocate is to share. Allocate is to share. Step 5. Step 5, what is step 5? Calculate the total contribution. Sorry. Calculate the, find the optimal production plan and total what? Contribution. Find the optimal production plan and total contribution. Those are the steps we are going to follow in order to answer any given question in the next 45 minutes. So I'm just giving you a second so that you get that right. Those steps are the steps to be followed. You okay? You are asking me a question or you are giving out step 6? Oh, sorry. Okay, I've understood you. This was step 5 and this is step 6. Thank you. I've understood you. So we have step 1. So there is step 1, there is step 2, there is step 3, there is step 3, we have step 4, we have step 5, And we have lastly step 6. So those are the steps to be followed. Those are the steps to be followed. Those are the steps to be followed when identifying the limiting factor. So let's go to an example. So we can go to example. Excel what? Excel. So there is an example in the Excel. Now here I'm caught between what we call a rock and a hard place. I don't know if okay, let's. So you can see this optimal production plan. I'm really caught between a rock and a hard place. Can we, I don't know, should we start with the past paper or should we start with the past paper question? Or I think let's start with the past paper and then we look at example in the notes. Okay, so should we start with, so let's, which one do you want us to start with? Past paper or the example in the notes? Example in the notes. Okay, so, okay. Okay, let's just look at this. Then example in the notes. But this one, example in the notes is that one. So let's carefully read through this question. Carefully, let's read through. There are quite a number of steps. Okay, okay. So let's look at this. A company is able to produce 4 products and is planning its production mix for the following period. Relevant data is given below. So there is the A, B, C, and D. So the relevant data is given. So there is A, B. Labor is paid at $6 per hour. Labor is paid at $6 per hour, and labor hours are limited to 12,000 hours in a period. Determine the optimal production plan and calculate the total contribution it earns for the company. So in our workings, here we'll need to find hours per unit. Hours per unit. So we'll need to find what are the hours per unit. Look at what I'm doing. To get hours per unit, this is relevant data is given below. Selling price per, remember this is labor cost. This is hours per unit. This is labor cost. Hours per unit is equals to, how can I put this? Is equals to labor cost per unit divided by cost per hour. Please understand me there. We are trying to say, let me cut that from there. I hope it will fit. Okay, so we are trying to say in this case, hours per unit is equals to labor cost per, this is labor cost per hour. Look at what I'm doing there. So what is labor cost per hour? Look at what I'm doing. 6 divided by this 6 down here, divided by 6, which is down there. Here it will be equals to 12. You can see 12, this one here. Labor cost per is $12 divided by again $6, which is down there. Here it will be $18 divided by $6. And lastly, and this one will be equals to $24 divided by $6. What am I trying to get here? So that gives you therefore how much? Hours per unit. So it will be equals to 6 divided by what? 6. That will give you 1. This will be equals to 12 divided by 6. It will give you 2. This one is equals to 18 divided by 6 is equals to 3. And this one is equals to how many hours? Is equals to 24 divided by 6. It gives you what? 4 hours. So instead of writing that there, so remember, so here it is 1 hour. Here it is 2 hours. Here it is 3 hours. Here it is 4 hours. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and 4 hours. I hope up to there we are together. I'm just trying to be very slow. Now, units. Units. What are the units? You can see 1,000. Here we have 5,000. Here we have 4,000. And here we have 2,000. So what is the total hours per product? Total hours per product is equals to 1 is equals to 1 times 1,000. So whatever it gives you, what is giving a problem here? Okay. So this is total hours per product is 1,000, 10,000, 12,000 plus 8,000. So let's come to the question now. What is step 1? So solution. What is step 1? Step 1, identify if there is a limiting factor for what? Labor. Identify if there is no limiting factor, you even stop there. Identify if there is a limiting factor. So labor hours needed, labor hours needed is equals to labor hours needed are look at what I'm doing now. 1,000 plus 10,000 plus 12,000 plus 8,000. 1,000, I hope I'll remember. 1,000 plus 10,000 plus 12,000 plus 8,000. So labor hours needed is equals to whatever it gives us is equals to, so which is equals to, I'm just trying to get that, 1,000 plus 10,000 plus 12,000 plus 8,000. So it's equals to 31,000 hours. So hours needed. So next, labor hours available. How many hours were available were we given? This one here. Labor hours are limited to 12,000 hours in the period. You can see that 12,000. 12,000. So I can put there. Maybe 12,000 hours. 12,000 hours. So can we say therefore? Therefore, labor hours is a limiting factor. Therefore, labor hours is a limiting factor. That is step 1. Step 2. What was step 2? Step 2 was asking us calculate contribution per unit, which is equal to selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. So calculate contribution per unit. Calculate contribution per unit. So we'll have our products A, product B, product C, and product D. Product A, product B, product C, and our product D. So we can start off. So we can start with the first one. What is the selling price per unit? Selling price per unit. So what is our selling price per unit of A? 19. You can see there. I'll just transfer them. B is 25. C is 40. And D is 50. Next, you less what? Variable cost per unit. You less variable cost per unit. What is that? Labor cost plus material cost, which is equals to labor cost plus material cost. So let's look at this. Variable cost is labor plus materials. Labor plus materials. So look, I'll just scroll that. Is the next one 21? Yes. Yeah, so that is labor cost. You just click that cell and you will know how you'll get it. Therefore, contribution per unit is equals to, what did we say? Selling price minus variable cost. So what does it give you? 4. So it gives you that. That is step what? 2. Step 2 is to calculate contribution per unit. Calculate contribution per unit. Step 3. Calculate contribution per unit of limiting factor. Calculate contribution per unit of limiting factor. Step 3, calculate contribution per unit of limiting factor. Calculate contribution per unit of limiting factor. So contribution per unit of limiting factor is equals to, what have we said? Contribution, it will be equal to contribution per unit, you divide by hours per unit. Remember, limiting factor is hours per unit. So again, let's have product A, product B, product C, and product D. So what is our contribution per unit? Per unit, contribution per unit is 4. So we have that 4. I'll just scroll so that I get all of them. Contribution per unit is that from step 2. And then hours per unit. Hours per unit, you can see this. It was 1. This was 2. This was 3. And this was 4 hours. Therefore, contribution per unit of limiting factor, contribution per unit of limiting factor is therefore equals to 4 divided by 1. So it gives you 4. I'll do the same like that. Maybe to 2 decimal places. So that is step. Please follow the steps. That is step 3. Calculate contribution per unit of limiting factor. What was step 4? Step 4 is to rank the products. Rank the products. Rank the products. So remember, our products are A, B, C, and D. So I'll look at the rank. Which one will be manufactured first? The one with the highest. Which one? A. You will start, this will be, A will be the first. D will be the second. I'm using step 3 to rank them. C will be the third. And B will be the fourth. So we'll be allocating the resources. So when you are allocating the resources, step 5, that is step 5, allocate the scarce resources. Starting in the order in which the products are ranked. So allocate the scarce resources in the order in which the products are ranked. So we have first, we have second, sorry. So we have first, we have second, we have third, and we have what? Fourth. You have the first product is A. A. Second product is D. Third product is C. And fourth product is B. Next, we'll look at here. So here I'll look at rank. Rank product. Next, I'll look at resources needed. Resources needed. I hope that space will be enough. Resources needed. Next, I'll look at resources remaining. And then next, I think I can do that. Or I can just be patient with me, please. Be patient with me. Okay, so that is resources needed, product, resources needed. So look at this. For product A, look at this. For product A, the units, resources needed is 1,000. You can see that. Product A, it is 1,000 hours is what is needed. Okay. For product B, it is, that is what is needed. Sorry, D is not that, sorry. D is this. For product C, it is 12,000. For product D, B is 10,000. So remember, that is what we need. Resources remaining after making the, so units, resources remaining. Remember, we only had 12,000 minus 1,000. How much will remain with? 12,000 is what we had. Remember, 12,000 is the resources we had. Here, sorry, here. 12,000 is what is available. Remember, what is remaining after making the, it will be 12,000 minus 1,000. So what does it give you? 11,000 is remaining. So 11,000 can serve here. So we come here again and have 11,000 minus what we need there. Sorry, 11,000 minus what we need there is 8,000. What do you get? So this is 11,000 minus 8,000. So what is remaining? 3,000. So the 3,000 remaining, so we cannot make all units of, so look at this, I'll make an NB for product C. For product C, we cannot make all the units. All the units. What are all the units? What are all the units of C? 4,000 units. All the, we cannot make all the units. That is 4,000 units because we will need, how much we will need? 12,000 hours, yet the remaining balance after making product D is what? 3,000 hours. Therefore, to find the number of units of what? Of C to make, you will do the following. Please understand me. You cannot make the whole 1,000 unit, 4,000 units, because to make 4,000 units, it will require a total of 12,000 hours. Yet the remaining is only 3,000. The remaining is only 3,000. So in this case, what you will do is the following. You will say, if to make 4,000 units takes what? I'm taking you to high school mathematics. Takes 3,000 hours. Sorry, to make 4,000 units takes 12,000 hours, comma, if to make 4,000 units takes 3,000, how many units will be made with 3,000 hours? That is a high school mathematics that you always do. So it will be equals to, how did we used to do it? What times what? I'm forgetting the high school maths. High school maths. So we'll say how many units? So it will be equal to 4,000. Yeah, 4,000 units times 3,000 hours. You divide by 12,000 hours. Divide by 12,000 hours. I remember that is a calculation we used to do in high school. So that is the calculation. So what will it give you? So is equals to, look at this, 4,000 times 3,000 divided by 12,000. How much does it give you? 1,000 units. Therefore, we will produce 1,000 units of C within the, sorry. 1,000, we will produce 1,000 units of C within the available 3,000 hours. Within the available 3,000 hours. That is step 4. Is it step 5? Sorry. That is step 5. So step 6. Step 6, find the optimal plan and total contribution. Find the optimal plan and total contribution. So in this case, we will look at rank. We will look at product. I'm just repeating the previous step. We will look at units. We will look at units to produce. We will look at, what else will we look at? Contribution per unit. And we will look at total contribution. That is what we will be looking at here. So what was the rank? First, second, third, fourth. First, second, third, fourth. So first was product A, second was product D, third was product C, and fourth was product B. Units to be produced. We will produce all units of A. We will produce all units of A. This other one, we will produce all units of D. All units of D, because we still have C, we will only produce 1,000 units of C, and we will produce 0 units because our resources are over. You'll produce all units of like that. So what is contribution per unit? Contribution per unit of A, step 1, is 4. Contribution per unit of D, contribution per unit of D is 10. Contribution per unit of C, contribution per unit of C is 7. And contribution per unit of B, is it 4? Yeah, 4. So what is total contribution? This one everyone now knows. This times contribution per unit. So that will be your total contribution. That will be your total contribution. So what is the final total contribution? Contribution of all units is equals to 4,000 plus 20,000 plus 7,000 plus 1,000. It gives you 31,000 what? Dollars. $31,000. So finally, conclusion is the optimal plan is to produce 1,000 units of A, 2,000 units of B, 1,000 units of C. This is not B, sorry. This is not B. This is D, of D. And 0 units of B to give a total. In class, I'll call you. I'm in class, I'll call you. To give a total contribution of, how much? 31,000. You have time to practice. You have time to practice. Make sure you practice, you practice. Now I'm remaining with 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Can I do example 2? Can you just allow me to slightly extend so that I do example 2? Do you permit me? Maybe I may extend with around 5 to 10 minutes. Do you allow me to extend with 5 minutes so that we do example 2? So that at least you can compare. You know, it is very important to be in a position to compare. So let's look at example 2. And in order to save time, let me copy these steps. Let me just copy those steps, and you will see the way mastering steps is very important. Please just try to remember those steps. Try to remember the steps. Remembrance of the steps will go a long way in helping you. So allow me just to go step by step. I just read the question and I try to answer it, and then we end the class. You okay? There is a chance to understand it through step, the next example. That is what I want to do. Next example is telling you, outline the steps involved in making a product mix decision involving limiting factors. So allow me part A to do it there. So solution part A. Solution of part A. What is part A asking you? Steps involved in making a product mix decision. Steps involved in making a product mix decision with what? Limiting factor. So I don't need to cover that. You will know step 1, step 2. You just list them. You know them. I don't need to list them. Step what? 3. Step 4. Step 5. Was there also step 6? Step 6. You know it. So what is step 1? Identify the what? Limiting factor. Step 2, calculate contribution per unit. Step 3, you can now continue. Calculate contribution per unit of limiting factor. Step 4 is to do what? Rank the products, etc. I don't have time to go all that deep. Now let's go to part B. So part B is asking you, so part B is now this. So part B. So that is part B. So what is part B asking you? Optimal product mix the company should produce to sell in order to maximize what? Return. Optimal production, okay? And then contribution gain or lost. So that is B1. And then contribution B1 and 2. So this we are getting B1 and B what? And B2 and B2. We are doing all that together so that we save time. B1 is optimal production plan, the number of units. B2, and then explain any 5 steps followed in determining the cost per unit of a product or service using activity-based costing. That is not in this topic. That is another topic. So let's go and read the question. Gisenyi Limited are recently incorporated soft drinks. So remember what I've just left out, this one. This one is in steps in activity-based costing. It is not this topic. Steps in activity-based costing. You know them. You just go to the topic activity-based costing and you pick the steps. Gisenyi Limited, a recently incorporated soft drink company, produces 3 products, namely mineral water, mango juice, and apple juice, which are all packed in bottles of 2 liters each. The company is reviewing its production plan for the financial year 2018 and has provided the following information regarding the 3 products: mineral water, mango juice, and apple juice. So step 1 is to identify the limiting factor. So first of all, the total number of labor hours available is 7502. So I'll have workings, B workings. So I'll have B workings. So hours needed is equals to, let's identify the hours needed. Hours needed, labor hours is, you can see units times 0, units times 0.125. So look at what I'm doing. Hours needed is equals to, now moving is really difficult for me, 1300 times 0.125. You can see that 1300 units times 0.125 hours, plus the next one is 1625 times 0.125. 1625 times 0.125 plus the third one is 1675 times 0.25. 1675 times 0.25. 1675 times 0.25. So that is what we have. Is it 0.25? Yes. And 1675. Let me just reconfirm. So units times what? Hours. Also, this is what? Units times hours. So that is clear to us. So that will give you is equals to 1300 times 0.125. Whatever it gives you, this one is equals to 1625 times 0.125. It gives you that. This question was even easier than the one we did. 1675 times 0.25. So that is that. So what is the total hours needed? So we can come now to step one. Labor hours needed. So labor hours needed, you can now see what I'll do here. What will I take? 163 plus 203 plus 419. 163 plus 203 plus 419. 163, look at what I'm doing there. 163 plus 203 plus, I'm forgetting the other one. Plus what? Plus 419. 4 plus 419. 419. Whatever you get. So that will give you, let me pick it from here. 163 plus 2 plus that. So what does it give you? The labor hours needed is that. What are the labor hours available? Did we make a mistake somewhere? Yeah, we made a mistake. Sorry. I was picking selling price instead of picking units. Do you see that? I was picking selling price instead of picking units. You ought to have corrected me. Thank you, Anastasia. You know, I was wondering. So units is not that. Units is 20,000, 35,000, and 22. Thanks. So it is 20,000, 35,000. So this is, sorry for that, 20,000. The other one is 35,000. 35,000. And the last one is 22,000. Yeah, this should now be 22,000. You know, this is the goodness of Excel. So this will give you 20,000. 20,000, sorry. So 20,000. This one will give you 203. How did we get 203? So we'll multiply it by 35,000. This is the goodness of Excel. We will not go back a lot. So, and then this one will give you 22. Those are the units. So that gives you, so I think I've brought them here. here. Okay, so whatever it was giving us, 25, 43, 75, and 55. 25, 43, 75. So this gives you 25, 25, 43, 75, 43, 75, and 55. 55. Okay, so we are done with that. Okay. So what was available? Available is 7502. You can see available is 7502. 7502 is what is available. So we can, that is what is available. So we can conclude that therefore labor is a limiting factor because what is needed is more than what is available. So step 2, calculate contribution per unit. So remember, we don't have that. We don't have that product. So what is the product that we have? Mineral water, mango, and apple. Mineral water, mango, and apple. So mineral water, mango, juice, and apple juice. So selling prices is now there. Selling price is, you can see them there. Now there, 1,300. This one is 1625, and that one is 1675. Variable cost is 815. This one is 1050, and this one is 1,000. So you can see contribution per unit we already have. So that is our contribution per unit. Of course, those products, I'll just copy them and come and post them there. So those are our products. The contribution is automatic there. What are the hours per unit? You can see the hours per unit, 0.125, and this one is 0.125, and this one is 0.25. So it gives you contribution per unit of limiting factor. It is there. So how do we rank? How do we rank? I'll again copy that. I'll bring it there. How do we rank? Help me, please. Ranking. Which one is first? This one is first. Which one is second? This is second. And this is what? Third, depending on contribution per unit. These things are making sense. I hope you are seeing. You are seeing that they are making sense. So here, which is the product ranked first? Product ranked first is mango juice. Mango juice. Product ranked second is mineral water. Mineral water, sorry, water. Product ranked third is apple juice. Apple juice. So resources needed. Here again, you can get the resources needed. What are they? Resources needed. We can get it. Did we have it here? Oh, no. Resources needed. Did we do calculation somewhere? Yes, they are there. Resources needed are there. So we can come and post there. Resources needed. Look at what I'm posting there. For mango juice is the second one. So mango juice, the resources needed for mango juice is that. Mango juice was the second one. Ranked second is mineral water, which was the first product. Resources needed. Ranked second is the first product. Ranked third is that. So those are the resources needed. Resources remaining. Look at this. Now you take 70. Let me remove that. So we take, what are the resources? 75, that one. 7502, 7502. Look at that. 7502 minus 4375. Whatever you get there. So is equals to, look at what I'm picking. I'm picking that minus that. What do we have? 30, whatever it is. So next here we'll have 3127 minus 2500. What does it give you? 30 minus 2500. It gives you 627. So apple juice here, there is this. So we can say for product, instead of calling product C, for apple juice, please understand the statement so that we cannot make all the units. What were the units of apple juice? We cannot make all the units, 22,000 units. We cannot make all the, for apple juice, we cannot make all the units, 22,000. We cannot make all the, 22,000, because we will need 5,500 hours, because we will need 5,500 hours. You can see I'm just trying to be slow. Yet the remaining balance after making mineral water, is how many hours? Is 627 hours. Therefore, to find the number of units of apple juice, I'm just trying to follow that. To make, you will do the following. You will say, if to make 22,000 units, 22,000 units will take how many hours? 5,500 hours. How many units will be made with how many hours? 627. 627. How many hours will be made? So that will be equals to 22,000 times 627 divided by 5,500. I just wanted to do that so that you see that the steps don't change. That is why I'm doing all that. So it is 22,000 times 627 divided by 5,500. So how many units will you make? Therefore, we will produce 2,508 units within the available how many hours? 620 within the available 6. So step this. That step finally. So let's look at this. What is the product ranked first? Mango juice. I'm just finishing, please. Product ranked second, mineral water. water. Product ranked third is apple juice. Units of each, units. What are the units of each? We get it from the question. Units of each is units of mango juice. Units of mango juice, 35. Mineral, 20. 35, 20. Mineral is 20. 35. Mineral is 20,000. And apple juice is 2. Let me just pick this from the source. Apple juice is that. This is not. That is apple juice there. So here, cost per unit. Not cost per unit, I mean contribution per unit. What is our contribution per unit of mango juice? Contribution per unit of mango juice. Contribution per unit of mango juice is that. Okay. Contribution per unit of mineral water. Contribution per unit of mineral water is that. And finally, contribution per unit of apple juice is that. Contribution per unit of apple juice is that. Therefore, you have the total contribution, which is this. Yes, we have the total contribution. So what is your total contribution? Your total contribution is S. I hope it has picked the right figure. S52 plus S54 plus S56. Yes, the total contribution is that, but it is now not dollars, it is Rwandese francs. Therefore, the optimal production plan is to produce 35,000 bottles. Instead of units, we use what? Bottles of mango juice. Okay. Next, 20,000 bottles of mineral water. 20,000 bottles of what? Mineral water. And 508 bottles of what? What is that product called? Of apple juice. Of apple juice. Let me just bring everything within the table. I've just finished mineral water. So let me just remove that from there. I bring it down here. Okay. To give a total contribution of how much? Rwandese francs, 31,517,900. And that is that sitting. When was it? December 2017, question 7. That is how you could have earned all the marks. Can we kindly stop there? So that is how you could have earned all the. I check on step 3. What is in step 3? Step 3 is fine. It is okay. The person who is asking me, I've just checked that it is okay. So that brings us to the end. So next week when we meet on Thursday, we will now go to now the remaining part of the topic, and then we finalize. So basically, by now you should be in a position to then attempt almost all questions in exams. Step 3. It is not 0, it is just rounding off is what changed it. Is that okay? It is rounding off error. Rounding off, it was rounding it off to the nearest whole number. It is the same. Is that okay? Julius, is it okay? Julius. Is it okay? Okay, fine. Let's stop there. Have a good night. Please, let's all turn up for the mock. Check your timetable, please. Let us come and do the mock. Let us come and do the mock, but only Minicofin sponsored and very few cases. So let's come and do the mock. Let's come and turn up for the mock. Check the timetable so that you know when the mock is there. Thank you so much. Have a good night. So this weekend is a weekend for mocks. This weekend, on Saturday and Sunday, it is only the mock. So you come to University of Kigali only the time that the mock is supposed to be there. For Minicofin sponsored students, remember it is compulsory. If you don't do it, Minicofin may ask you to repay what they have, because we'll be submitting the results to Minicofin. So it is compulsory for all Minicofin sponsored students. Otherwise, have a good night. Let's meet next time. I'm sharing this in the group.